one, whoever.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the regular board meeting in September to order. Let the record reflect that all board members are present except for Dr. Prater. So please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any modifications to the agenda? Okay, then we'll move on to the President's report, which really I'd kind of like to change to maybe like a board report. But there's a couple things that I want to cover tonight, but we've been getting into the routine of reporting if we've been out in the community and or in the schools. And first of all, are there any reports in that regard?
Do you want to hear from the beginning of the school year, or?
Since the last meeting.
Since the last meeting, probably, yeah. You had quite a string there, Dr. Frederick. So, well, I know that a lot of us have had very heavy community involvement. I did give the, with Dr. Ritter, the State of the Schools address at Good Morning Springfield. I guess that was 2 weeks ago, yesterday. Had a couple board members there. It was well received. We showed a new video that highlights just the innovation and choice that's going on within the system, and just really, in general, the good things that are happening in the system. And I was wondering, could we have that shown at the board meeting?
Sure.
Please.
Next time? I think that was really, really good. I've gotten a lot of feedback from the community on that. I do know I want to thank Mrs. Bush and Mr. Lee for working with staff to complete our OSR, or get us closer to being complete and establish some goals. We'll hear about that a little bit later. And then just another reminder that Dr. Prater, Dr. Frederick, and Mr. Renner have all agreed to be on that initial kind of a screening team of the RFPs that will be coming in for the superintendent search. And it's really our hope that that review would be done between now and October 1st, which is our next meeting. So the three of you can figure out a time. Probably it will be closer to the 1st than now, but I know that we had put the deadline for receiving the RFPs to next week, so it's going to be a quick turnaround. If you can't do it during that time, I understand, but we'll do our best.
Sorry, who are the three?
Can do it.
It's Dr. Frederick, Dr. Prater, and Mr. Renner all volunteered to be on that screening team. And then the other thing I would just like to say before we go into a quick report about our community leadership visit to Nashville is on behalf of the entire board, the district, our families, our students, our staff, I'd like to thank everyone who played a role in making sure that the governor's veto of House Bill 253 was upheld. It was a great day for public education in the state, as well as other state services that are supported through taxpayer money. I was very proud of our Missouri School Boards Association that took really a lead in this regard, and then to all of you here that met with our legislators. Unfortunately, we didn't sway a lot of votes locally, but other legislators did listen to their constituents and provided enough support to uphold that veto. So last week, starting on Thursday, Dr. Ritter, Mr. Lee, Dr. Frederick, and myself went to Nashville along with several of our staff. And this was on the community leadership visit that's sponsored every year by the Chamber. And I've asked each of the participants up here at the table, and we'll get input from our administrative staff at a later date, but just kind of highlight really no more than a couple minutes of what the highlights were and what you brought back that we could really implement or think about here. So Dr. Ritter, you want to start us out on that?
I thought the whole idea of incubator and innovation was really very, very exciting to see. And of course, they are the music city. I've heard the hit city. So anyway, but as far as school is concerned, the academies on the high school level, I thought some great ideas as far as how to get kids focused on careers, starting as early as in ninth grade. And every single student in the high school has a career in mind and is aligned with an academy. So impressed with that. But overall, I was impressed with the leadership, with the organization. I think the chamber did an outstanding job. So,
thank you, Mr. Lee.
As always, that was my 10th trip on one of those things, and you always bring something home of some nugget from there. One of the things I always come back with is our community is doing pretty well. We got a lot of good things going for us, and it's nice to go and we're not looking to turn the ship upside down or turn it around. It's just what are some things that we can add value to as a community. I thought two of the things that I thought particularly that impact us a little bit. One is the lot of focus on entrepreneurship, and I think that's something we as a district at some point want to. That's one of the Nashville's things is entrepreneurship and helping companies start up, young people get involved, and I've always thought that's something that we as a district could do, partnering with whether it's JVIC or somebody to help our high school kids understand entrepreneurship and what it takes to do that, help them do that and that. But there was a real strong focus on that. And the second thing that I took away that I thought was kind of important is their definition of partnerships with the business community was truly partnerships. We have a few, you got Bass Pro, you've got Mercy and Cox and OTC, and those are truly partnerships. But the rest of them, we call them partnerships, but they're more sponsorships. They kind of help schools and that kind of thing. They're not what I would consider innovative or really getting into what can we do things differently. And they took a whole approach to that. Their business community really has stepped up, and the school systems have stepped up with the business partners and said, how do we make this a collaborative partnership so that everybody's got a stake in the game? Everybody has ownership in it, and how do we make a true difference in those students' lives and their success? And so, I would hope that one takeaway was we would come back and look at that as we develop partnerships and with the community, which I know we do from an innovation standpoint, and I hope we continue doing that, but they kind of put it at a different level than what we historically have done up until just a few years ago. And so, but it's always good to come back and go, we're doing pretty good things here as a district and as a community.
Thank you.
Well, this is my first opportunity to attend this event. It was amazing, very intense. We started early in the morning and finished up late in the evening. But in agreement with Dr. Ritter and with Mr. Lee, there was a lot of discussion on creative and innovation, and I think the majority of the discussions were around business models and creating new businesses. But one of our presentations, the presenter made 3 points that I thought even lend toward the educational aspect of being creative and innovative, and that is that within your system you identify and support the gazelles. That would be those individuals that are very talented, quality, work hard, and I think that's something that within education that's important for us to identify and support our gazelles. And then also he said, number 2, be prepared to address the culture that comes from working with highly creative individuals. They see things a little differently, so then be prepared to work with those individuals and allow them to be creative and innovative. And then the third point was then to connect that creativity with a funding pipeline. And I think that's the really third very critical piece of that. It's great to be innovative and creative, but then you have to find the resources to implement that. So I thought that was very interesting, and that was pretty much a focus throughout most of the other presentations. But I think I feel like Springfield is headed in that direction as long as we can then follow up with that third piece, which is find that connection in our community to fund some of those creative and innovative programs. I also was really impressed with that Nashville had a focus. I mean, their focus right now is toward developing a mass transit system. So they provide transportation to their downtown and to their business hubs. And I think it was only 2 presentations that became very clear. That's their next steps, and that's a huge goal. And I feel like we're doing the same thing in Springfield, only our big emphasis and our focus is our every child focus. And I think Nashville's done it in the past. They put a focus toward building a civic center, a music center, and it's beautiful. And they had that type of focus. So I feel very sure that they'll get this mass transit system in place. But if we have that same type of focus among education, community, business, agencies, I hope we're as successful with our every child focus. So very good experience, and I'm glad I'm thankful for the opportunity to go.
Great. Well, thank you all for sharing. I agree that the shared vision of, and I would say that probably there's kind of chinks in that shared vision in Nashville that we probably weren't privy to, but certainly the language of the leaders that we heard talked about three different initiatives that everyone was focused on, and education being one of those. I think the thing that struck me was that the community leaders there, a lot of them were not, they did not have children in the public school system. They were either in private schools or lived outside the community. And it really reinforced to me the importance of having a very strong presence of community leaders and a real mix of people in our public schools. And so I think that is something that it resonated with me. It made me realize that we really have a foundation. They're going back and trying to repair a lot of what had happened in the past. I think if we can build on the foundation that we have, we'll be in a much better place. And I guess the only other thing that stuck out to me is, we've been talking a lot about innovation in our system, and I really wondered how much of that had really gotten to our staff level, our faculty level. And I know Dr. Hackenworth and Mr. McKenna and I were able to have some discussions about how we might integrate that whole concept into opportunities for our teachers and staff. So those were the key points. It's kind of hard to digest all of that, but we appreciate the opportunity to go represent the district and really bring back a lot of good material. So with that in mind, we'll go to Superintendent's report. Do you have anything else, Dr.
I do. I just want to kind of do a closing on the staffing update. This is literally hot off the press. We have 195 teachers have been hired for this year, 34.39 of which are the result of newly approved FTE through the budget process. So literally off the press. Additionally, 194 non-teaching staff have been hired for this school year. So anyway, that's the official there. We are approaching the official enrollment date, which is next Wednesday. And as of last Friday, we are up 169 students across our system. So that's pretty much I want to report. The other thing I want to report is an opportunity to visit with a middle school CSI out at Pleasant View, and really targeting the 15 students. He has 2 different sites, and it's amazing how that targeting is helping kids to school, but also helping the families. So just one thing I wanted to share. Anyway, that's all I have at this time.
Great. Mrs. Luton, any public comments on the agenda items? Okay, we'll go to the information item then. The ongoing systems review. Dr. Ritter.
Miss Palmer. She's doing awesome work, by the way. I saw her corral 2 of our most interesting board members last night. She did a good job. Corral. Yes, that's a good way to put it.
Interesting?
Anyway, interesting, yes. No, they were very
Interested.
good. Very, very interesting.
I think
Anyway,
interesting. Yeah.
so if you would, please.
Thank you. So we're going to continue the journey And as you're seeing, it really truly is a journey to create an OSR. And Debbie is going to hand out some books and resources within that. So just as a reminder, when you get your resources, if you'll pull out the packet of information, the first thing that we did at the board retreat was look at the 8 steps of a highly effective board. And so you have that in a format. And then what we did from there was look at the last meeting, a draft of your input that you got at the retreat, put all that together, and then what Dr. Ritter, Mrs. Moore, and I did yesterday afternoon was work with your leads to think of adjustments or definitions for what is needed within that. So if Mrs. Bush or Mr. Lee, if you have anything to add or jump in, you are welcome to do it any time.
Doing okay so far.
Okay?
You gave us a very good structure within which to work.
Okay.
Made it easy.
So the summary sheet really didn't change any. We had a lot of conversation around it, but the language within it has not been adjusted so far, and you have a copy of that. The second document, which is the key success measures, had a lot of conversation within that and also changes. A lot of the questions that came last time was, what does this mean? What is the definition of that? And so that was really our focus of our conversation yesterday. And so if you look at 2 papers within your handout, if you look at the key success measure and then the flow chart of what the definition is behind that, I think looking at those 2 documents together will help make a little bit more sense. So how this flow chart works is it looks at to ensuring data and information are used for improvement. And so to develop a scope and sequence of professional learning for the Board of Education members, and within that, develop a clear definition of the data process, which that's a process that the board will have to define within itself, because it could look different for every program, it could look different for every board. The second part is communication gained from professional learning opportunities that each board member will have. Within that, you'll see a difference in the ranges. Now it's set for 28 or above, which means that each board member would have an official sharing out of information at least 4 times a year. And the ranges are set backwards from that. The other idea behind that is to look at student achievement as well as a topic. So one of the ideas that was talked about was that each board member would have a focus of a topic that they would kind of be the champion for and the go-to person for, because everybody can't do everything. So those are the examples that you see in the middle. On the last column, it's a process for strategic advocacy. We talked about a formal message that all 7 would go out and have within that month. And then from there, where would you communicate that at? So to communicate as a board, what do we believe as your platform? So 1 at the state, 2 local opportunities, and then 1 school. And again, the ranges changed from there. So it was 14 and above for the last version, and now it's 28 and above. So questions?
So the type of reporting out and the experience that some of us had last week in terms of being part of that community leadership, is it local advocacy? Is that where that might fit?
Right.
Okay.
And if it's with the strategic message that's agreed upon by the board. So if someone goes to a football game and talks to a principal but really doesn't message what the board has said the message is, that wouldn't necessarily count in our thinking. Again, this
Right.
is draft form, but
Not how are the kids? How's it?
right. How are things going?
I think one to add 2 part of that. I think one of the underlying, and we're going to hear about it tonight too, is one of the other OSRs was the expectation that we have from teachers, the expectation we have from staff of professional learning and professional development, that applies as much to us as board members as it does to staff. If we're, I guess we need to walk the talk if we're doing it now, whether it's issues or what's going on. I think that was an underlying theme, and I think everything we talked about yesterday was professional development and how can we stay on the curve, ahead of the curve on issues, whether it's advocacy or issues or just having data available. And Jill just is phenomenal with putting this together so you understand it. And one of the things I think we Ms. Bush and I had to kind of resist was jumping ahead and going to an answer before we had the process established. And this is just process. This is putting the process together this year, and next year we're talking about what would those examples be? What's the data that we need to see to make decisions? I don't know what those are. This is a group of 8 here that's got to decide that, and not what we come up with. It's got to be board owned and board directed. It's what data you want to see.
And that final decision, it may take all year.
Yeah.
We may be doing trial and error to say, no, those really aren't the ones we thought we wanted. What's going to work? And
Well,
so
kind of like what we did with the
the
OSRs
first
last
month,
year.
we're not going to be at 100%.
Right. Yeah. Any other questions or input?
The final piece that was added was an orientation for prospective board members to bring them on. So not just waiting until they're official board member, but educating them on the responsibilities within that.
Potential candidate.
We felt like that, doing something early in the fall or something of who's interested in becoming a board member, of having an orientation or an understanding of, no, it's not just 2 meetings a month.
I think that'd be an excellent.
And have some input for anybody, open to anybody that's interested from a community standpoint that would like to be a school board member. Make sure they understand what they're getting into.
Right, and before November, when they have to
When the
pick up
filing
petitions.
dates, petitions go out, and so,
And it might not be bad to have that open to people that may not even be interested in running, because I think they'd have a better understanding of the intensity and the care with which the boards do their job.
I think one of the things we talked about in Jill is, and this is not just Springfield, this is statewide. Board members have a tendency to think they go through the 16 hours of required state training, and they're done. They're qualified, they're educated, and they're up to speed on everything, and that doesn't even scratch the surface on issues, whether it's advocacy, finance, law, whatever. And that's something that I know we struggle with from an MSBA standpoint, is how do we continue to make the 3,500 school board members in Missouri more knowledgeable and better educated on the issues, other than just this foundation that they get for 16 hours at the start of their board service.
Any other feedback at all?
I think we talked then about actually getting in and starting to discuss this at the meeting in October, right? The
October
study
1st.
session, to start looking at some of the details.
Should be shaping it, yeah.
Great. Well, I think this is exactly where, at least we think we want to be.
That's what you told us.
Yeah. But I appreciate,
Be careful what you
it's a
ask for.
process. I mean, there's, 7 of us plus Dr. Ritter, who all have kind of different ways of thinking of things and different ways of approaching different patient level with process versus which I don't have much. So I appreciate Mr. Lee and Mrs. Bush working through that as well, and for the staff support. So,
Jill and Marty both made it
Yeah.
easy.
yeah.
One of the things that and I just saw this today, the logo up there in the top right corner. You can't see it very well, not as well as I hope.
It's on there.
Yeah, it's on the page that she handed out. I just thought it looked good when she first put it out there, but there's a whole lot of meaning to that logo. When you look at, there's 8 people, we got a board of 8, we got pieces that all fit together, and the strategy, which are the 4 color pieces, are much more prominent than us as individual board members. We're sort of just making sure it stays up, and not one of those pieces will stand up other than without those 2 people. And I don't know where she pulled it, or if she made it up. She's a genius.
I know that.
We know that too, but I see that being used a lot of places from a board standpoint and board superintendent relations standpoint. I just thought that was, you're really good on that one. You came up with that one, and I think that says a lot about being an effective school board in a graphic form. And
You guys have, Mr. Renner, Mr. Hosmer, any questions, comments?
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I know when we first started kind of following the Baldrige model and had come up with our own goals, and we had reminders here at the board table of what they were. You know, and maybe even just this image, you know, in front of each of us, or, you know, such kind of like a visual reminder of what, you know, just what we're trying to do. So that would just be one suggestion that I would have that I thought was helpful to me when we started down this road. So, okay, great, thank you.
Okay, so a couple pieces to support between now and October to give you some kind of idea. We've given you the Visible Learning for Teachers books, and our leadership and every teacher in the district has received this as well. And just to let you know, if you like data, like I do, there's actually 2 more books behind it. This is all the research. So they made the teacher-friendly copy on how to apply it to classrooms, but here's the research. And then if you want even more, these are all the actual research articles behind this book and the other one. So there's lots of options and lots of research there. What this means is that there's an effect on everything that we do in a classroom. It could be at 0.01 or it could be at 1.2, but there's always an effect for what we do. And the placement of your bookmark in your book gives you the hinge point, and then if you flip over one more page, it gives a definition of why the arrow is at 0.4. That's the effect size of a general of 1 year achievement for a student. There's a range that's a little bit higher in the earlier grades, a little bit lower in the upper grades, but in general, on average, 0.4. So that's a good place to look at for figuring out what to do to actually affect student achievement at the most possible way. And your bookmark has 0.5 and above, also as a reference. If you look at page 169, it gives you mind frames to look at on what works and what doesn't work as far as mind frames. And then the last reference on page 267, it gives you even more of a list than what's on your bookmark for all of the things to look at. And what's alarming is mobility, the negative effect that it has. So it gives not only positive but also negative. So to help in the professional learning journey, we wanted you to have this resource.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think this is just a comment more than anything.
You may have lost us for the rest of the meeting, but
Well, I think we did.
we'll commit to putting it down after this presentation.
I had seen another book or a speaker that talked about those influences, and they went all the way back to like 1940 when schools were, you know, the model we have now and the things that have been added to the burden of the teacher
Right.
every decade. And it's basically this list. There's 160 things that, you know, a teacher 40 years ago had to deal with was just, you know, stay in your chair. I'll teach you that,
Exactly.
to what we have to do now to make sure they're fed and all that stuff to deal with. I mean, it's just amazing the issues that they have to deal with on a daily, hourly student issue. And most people don't, when you hear, well, it worked for me in 1960,
Right.
why can't you do it the
It's
same way
different
we
now.
do it now? Well, let's go through a list. And I did that. I gave them a list and said, let me show you the changes that have happened since you were in elementary school. And it's just like, oh,
Mr.
that's what
Osborne?
we're dealing with.
A couple of years ago, I think Ms. Kissinger gave me just the one with all the
Uh-huh.
studies. So I am familiar with that. And
My favorite.
Much nicer to be just with the summaries here. But I was struck in my reading through that and discussions with Ms. Kissinger, how many of the ideas that my gut kind of told me were important didn't really show much, you know, importance. And some things that I knew were important did show, you know, a lot of importance. So, but, you know, it was kind of eye-opening to see that you know, you could actually kind of get at some of this value add that we talk about on the board when we're spending money. Well, there's also that value add when you're spending 45 minutes in the classroom. And the other thing that I thought was interesting in looking through this, I just went to a last night Pipkin where my eldest daughter is a 6th grader. We had a meeting with the parents on how they score and how they assess these kids in the MYP program, and just a lot of this, the assessment at Pipkin, you see this kind of cropping up all through the assessment with the rubrics and the, you know, and how they develop, and the kids taking ownership and being clear every classroom you walk in. And this is one of the things that was really clear in this research was every class when you walked in, that day's what the kids were expected to know, how they're going to get there, what they're going to do was right there. And, you know, that was one of those things that this book reinforces, is that having those clear goals that kids know every day and know how they're going to get there and when they've got there becomes really important. So it was inspiring to see that.
Yes, it is.
Great.
Okay, so the second part, very quickly, that you've received is data bites. So not only the research from the book, but data bites also has a cousin of research bites that go along with it. And so if there's things that come up, we can pull research together and support your professional learning as well. And so if there's any questions about MSIT 5 or any of the data bites information that you've received, we can take those.
Any questions about that?
Yes, but when we have more time.
Okay, exactly. So what we're going to do is switch to the modifications that you received and starting the new OSR cycle this year. So one of the modifications was just in the way that the actual report has been focused on. So you have a table of contents now that you can just click to the certain part of the report that you want to focus on. So that's one change. The second modification is looking at the colors to pick out the new information. The first one is in green. If the key success opportunities are now strengths, they're highlighted in green. If it's any new information on the report, it's highlighted in yellow. Everything else was there last year. So you can pull out those changes very quickly. The third modification is giving you a reference point of where it was last year compared to where it is this year. And to be true to the process, it truly is ongoing. And so all of those measures will not be exactly the same. That's why the gray boxes over here are now here, because the program lead felt like a change needed to be made, or maybe it was a process measure and now it's actually a process that's in place that they can measure. So that's why those are there. So whenever you see gray boxes, it's just the information wasn't available the year before. Okay, so with that, we will start with the first one. And we have professional learning. What we'll do is the program lead will have a couple minutes to talk about changes from last year, and then we'll switch to the KSM summary, and that's whenever questions will be asked, and then we'll go from there. So, Ms. Kathy.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity to share our department celebrations and our data. As you can see from our key strengths, one that we've identified is our Step Up Induction Program. And I know that many of you are aware that in Springfield Public Schools, we've enjoyed a great tradition of reputable induction programs, both for our teachers and our leaders, to the extent that we do have data that is above national averages, and to the extent that we've been referenced in national reports and modeled for some state programs as well. So that's definitely a key strength of our program. It's important to me that you know that induction isn't the only thing our department does. And so you see number 2 as another strength. One thing that we do in a district program is to try to respect the individuality and uniqueness of each school culture, while also maintaining a standard of excellence for professional learning. And so 3 years ago, members of our department created what we call SPLS, to create a standard of district expectations for site professional learning, and we did it in a way that we knew would be systemic, and we have been able to maintain that. And the first year we did it, our data was so high on the response from the participants that it made me nervous, thinking there's no way we'll be able to sustain this. But I'm happy to say that we have data from our participants 3 years in a row in 98 and 99 ranges, which is something that makes my colleagues nationally envious of. Definitely, it's typically not what you see in participant data for professional learning in the high 90s. So we're very proud of that. The last thing that you see in green there is something that Dr. Brady Quirk, our coordinator of Step Up, he is good at thinking of things with fresh eyes, and instead of continuing the mentor-mentee program the way we had done it for years and years, he had an idea that we ran by some advisories for input, and we were able to implement it this year. So we reallocated the funds that we used to use for mentor-mentee to instead have something that we call new teacher liaisons, and they are in charge of doing site orientation at the building. And the advantage of that is that way there's a cohort of new teachers at the building. Not only are they supported by a step-up coach, but no matter what year of experience they're at, they have that site new teacher liaison. And so this is the first year for that, but it's something that we're proud of and that we didn't have to find or ask extra money for. We just reallocated the money we already had. So we're excited about that. We have positive data on e-learning, and we coordinate a lot with the e-learning department. We have offered step-up modules in the e-learning arena using Canvas already, and we're very proud of those 4 modules. It had been our hope that we would have some for all teachers by now, but it's taking us a little longer than we anticipated. So I wanted to be honest with you and let you know that last year we said we would have some of those by now, and so that is a red area. We don't have any live right now, but it is our intention that we'll have at least 5 this school year. And we're working now on the contemplation of the appropriate rollout for that and how to market it so that it will be used well. And we've made the decision that we would rather start small and have great e-learning than go fast and have a lot that are mediocre. So we're taking our time to do it right. So that's my quick summary.
Okay. Questions? Mr. Lee?
Just a quick question, and I probably should know the answer to this, and if it's there, it'll be embarrassing. The Evolving Leaders Program and the Leadership Institute, is that curriculum on the website anywhere of what is included in that? And I don't want to create anything and provide that. I was just curious, is that on the website anywhere? Is what actually is happening in the Evolving Leaders and the Leadership Institute? What's the content? Is that?
We have agendas and content that we use for a scope and sequence. For Leadership Institute, it's a one-day event, and we work with operations to coordinate what makes the agenda and what doesn't. With Evolving Leaders, we use national leadership standards to gear our curriculum, and the other purpose of that program is to sustain things that have been trained previously so that when we have turnover, it doesn't cause us to lose the knowledge in our district. And so some of the content is predictable because of that purpose, but we also definitely look at our audience every year and adjust it to their needs to differentiate. But if you would like a copy of the description of our Evolving Leaders program or the year at a glance with the topics that we include, I'd be happy to provide that, but I can't honestly say that it's on our website.
Okay. I don't want to put you in more work. I was just curious if it was on there, and obviously you answered the question. It's not a lockdown in concrete. It's flexible and based on who's attending. So
yes, it is intentionally formal and somewhat predictable, but yet with flexibility to meet the needs of each group. For instance, this year I have 27 first-year people in Evolving Leaders. Last year I had 8. Last year they were almost all non-building level leaders. This year we have a mix of both. So it just depends. As you know, good teachers read their students, good professional learning facilitators read their audience and make sure that we're meeting our needs.
Mr. Hazard?
A couple of questions. The SPLS, you talk about the very good response you're getting back from the teachers. What's the reason for that? What are you hearing as to why that's working so well?
One thing they love, we call it an SPLS workday, and we designed it intentionally so that an administrator comes with a group of teachers. That's something that I wanted to make sure that we were sharing the knowledge, not just in the administrative realm, but also in the teacher leadership realm, and that they're working together as leadership teams. And so one thing they like about it is that we kind of do a mix in the workday that we have them. We have them for approximately 6 hours, and about 3 of that is new learning that we are sharing with them because we're passionate about what good professional learning should look like. And so each year we've changed the content and made sure that we're giving them kind of the next level of what we'd like them to know about site professional learning. But the other thing that they love even more than that is the work time that we give them. So, for instance, if we've talked about their needs assessment and their student data and that should steer their focus of what their professional learning is going to be for the next year, then once we've said that, then they have time to actually talk to each other about it and look at their data. So there's a lot of work time and planning time, and they love that about it.
And then the e-learning, is that content that we create, or is that content that is created from some third party? And
No, we I would say we're a little bit picky in Springfield Public Schools. We like to tailor it to what matches our curriculum and our approach of initiatives and focus. And so we certainly use reputable sources and cite those as we're creating. We refer to things that are known nationally. But as far as buying a product from a PD company that I get contacted by constantly, we don't do that, because we really feel that the teachers that we can feature in Springfield Public School classrooms on the video clips really strike a chord more so with our teachers than something that we would just buy from someone else.
And the reason I asked that, at the last NSBA, and I think I reported on this, but a school district in Arizona, I think, was presenting, and one of the things they had really good success with was with teachers creating these things and then sharing them via and they talked about the fact that they were really concerned that, you know, how are you going to pay these teachers, or how are you going to give the extra time, and what they found from their teachers was they loved doing it because other teachers would say, oh, I love this, I love what you're doing with this thing, or and they just, it was proliferated across the district, and it was free to the district, and teachers loved it, got something out of it, and the teachers loved creating it because, you know, they were seen as, you know, a real go-to teacher. So I wonder, you know, if that's something that...
So if you were to view one of our Step Up modules that's on Canvas right now, you would see only Springfield Public School teachers on all of our clips.
But I mean, are they created by teachers, or is that...
Well, they're created by professional learning specialists who were former teachers. They're people in the Department of Professional Learning who that is part of their job. They're step-up coaches, and then they're also professional learning specialists who create this content. We also have a dream of something with e-learning. It's a shared dream that I think is going to be called the Glass Classroom, and those will be getting input on the creation of those from our PL advisory. And the idea for that is that instead of a lengthy module, it would be more little clips of what people could access for certain areas of interest.
The other thing, if I can just interject, is that with the SPS Now in August and also this Friday on September 20th, teachers have created strategies tied to our existing curriculum. So we're kind of marketing them as for teachers by teachers. So they're actual lessons in our own curriculum with very innovative ideas from teachers in our district. And there's a wiki space where they can virtually collaborate and access and have those things at their fingertips. And so that's in collaboration with professional learning curriculum, information literacy, IT, a partridge in a pear tree. I'm sure I'm leaving somebody out, but it's a first step kind of to move in that direction.
Okay.
I would suggest that we start defining wiki, what wiki means. I'm not trying to insult the board, but
No, we don't.
okay. Anyway,
I'm going to try to move us along because we have quite a few. We have a lot of content to get through tonight. So, Dr. Frederick, I know you had some comments.
Well, just very quickly to just say I applaud what you're doing in terms of developing. We have an incredible resources within our district. I mean, you know, both human capital and experience and expertise. So I know it's very tempting because many companies come forward with they have the next greatest thing to sell you. And so I think it's a good idea that we produce our own, tailor that to our needs within our district, and using the evidence and the research that goes behind that. But I think that it's amazing to me, and it's always been amazing to me whenever I attend conferences and I go to other workshops and other districts. I'm so proud they're doing, and we've been doing for many years. So good work.
Thank you very much.
Any other comments or questions from the board? Thank you.
My pleasure.
Okay, our next up is activities and athletics. Mr. Mark Fisher.
Dr. Ritter and the board. First of all, I'd like to thank Jill and her staff for helping us through this process. It was a second year through, and I think we're getting the hang of it. But again, I want to thank her and her staff. Looking at our key strengths, the first one was the hiring of the Assistant Director of Activities and Athletics. And I think that board members that have been on for a number of years, that's something we've been striving for because we know what it can do to enhance the programs at the middle school. And we were fortunate enough to get this taken care of and the hiring of Mr. Marsh. In doing that, we were also able to hire 9 middle school site athletic directors. And not only are those new positions, but those are 9 new positions that are giving individuals at the site administrative responsibilities, and hopefully somewhere down the road they will move in to other roles as administrators. So I know Mr. Marsh met with them last week, spent a full day with them, and I know they were very eager to learn some new things, and we will continue to have meetings throughout the year with them. We also were able to get our new scoreboards in at the soccer and baseball fields and our gymnasiums. It's the final piece of the Healthy Place to Play initiative, along with our track renovations. So that was about a 3-year process as far as the time we were beginning the initiative until the completion with the scoreboards and the track. Also, funding was approved for the construction of the softball fields at Glendale and Kickapoo. We have surveyed the property at Glendale and Kickapoo. Glendale, we're pretty well set on where that will be. Glendale, we're pretty well set. Kickapoo, we have a couple of different options. And we're working with a firm out of Kansas City to get some engineering specs, and hopefully we'll be ready to bid those out before Christmas, and then we will be able to get those fields in by next fall. And then finally, locker rooms at Harrison Stadium. Renovations have been completed, and I would like to publicly thank Drury for their partnership, and also Dave Bishop and his staff for helping us out on those renovations. We were able also to purchase new lockers, and I think if you talk to the football kids over at Central, they're very pleased with those improvements. Any questions on the strengths? The next are the key opportunities for improvement. I want to touch just briefly on 2 that were here from last year, and one was facilities. Just want to make a case that we need to continue to look at our facilities to keep those renovated. And as you see on the next steps, those improvements are listed under our departmental improvement plan and also the 5-year strategic plan. Number 2, continued increases in operating costs, whether that be transportation, uniforms, the cost of hiring officials. We need to continue to look at increase of the athletic budget. On the next steps, we're asking for a 3 to 5% increase each year until we hit a max of 15%. This would be in the neighborhood of $30,000 to $50,000 per year over the next 5 years. And then in order to increase student participation in activities and athletics, we'd also ask the board to allow us to look into the expansion into the emerging sports that MISHA is allowing us to move forward with, and those would be bass fishing, chess, trap shooting, and bowling. And also in the trap shooting, it is archery. And I don't know if you've had an opportunity to go and watch our kids in an archery program, but Chris Cole at Wilson's Creek does an outstanding job. I think I mentioned to a couple board members, last spring I went and thought I would make a brief appearance, and I was there over an hour. Just watching those kids and the intensity that they were going through and the focus. And a lot of those kids are kids that you're not going to see on the football field or on the basketball court or the soccer field. And I was very impressed. So I think that's something that not only will that help us with participation numbers, but it will help us get our kids engaged. And then along those lines, we'd also ask to move forward with softball and cross country at the middle school level. This would get us in line with our neighboring school districts of our size who offer softball and cross country at the middle school. And we also asked to look at the sixth graders to get them involved with those two activities. And then finally, we'd like to put a process in place and been working with Mr. Marsh, and he will continue to work with the site athletic directors at the middle school, is to develop an instrument similar to what we have at the high school, and that would be for the evaluation of middle school coaches. So again, those would be our key opportunities for improvement.
Are there any questions of Mr. Fisher? Mr. Lee?
Nosy tonight, I guess. One comment, I really appreciate the fact of focusing in on middle school. And I know this has been a board discussion for a couple of years, but I just think that is, if we can get them active and involved in middle school, they'll be active and involved in high school. And so that's just a comment more than anything. One of the questions that I have, one you just mentioned that I'll ask, when you said sixth grade in middle school for the softball and cross country, is there any discussion about expanding the sixth grade to the other sports that are already in existence that are not, now they're kind of club sports as opposed to being school sports?
Yeah, I think that's where we would look, and I think we were looking this as a pilot program. Now, when you look at basketball, for instance, with facilities that we currently have, where's the space? Because now you're looking at one more team or actually two more teams at each site, unless you put your sixth graders with your seventh graders. But if you do that, then you're limiting some of those seventh graders' opportunities. So I think that's where the facilities come into play. But that would be our goal, is to get sixth graders involved in other activities and athletics. And I might add also that this can't just be about athletics. This is about starting new clubs. As adults, we really don't know what kids are interested in all the time. So that's why I think if you look over on the next steps, that you would see that we want to conduct an interest survey of our students and find out what they want to engage in.
You address facilities, and I'm not even going to go there because I'm real concerned about that at the middle school level. We have facilities that don't even meet requirements. They're not even the right size basketball courts and stuff. But that's another issue. But as far as MISHA and following MISHA at the middle school level, is that something that we should look at, stay away from as far as we can? Does it help us? Does it hurt us from a standpoint of MISHA involvement in what we do at the middle school level?
I think that depends on who you talk to. We have a number of coaches who would like to be members of MISHA. Is it a possibility? Yes. Is it feasible right now? I don't think so, because we go back to the facility issue, which is not an overnight, fix. I think you have to look at your budget with transportation. Right now, we're very limited on the number of R12 buses that we can take for high schools. But again, those are things that can be remedied. Also, it would be scheduling, because right now with conference affiliations, you have your COC. For instance, they can play 6 middle school football games. Well, they will continue to play their conference schools. Now, basketball is a little bit different. Also, you look at our 9 middle schools, and our 9 middle schools, for the most part, look different because of enrollment. So you would have some that would mirror Nixa, Ozark Republic, and then you would also, because of enrollment numbers, would mirror Fairgrove, Pleasant Hope, Clever. So again, those are things that we could work through. but we have to address some of the needs first.
Any other, Mr. Osborne?
And has there, in terms of expanding to softball and cross country, and some of these other things, we have a number of middle schools that are landlocked with very small. I mean, what's the thought process in expanding in those schools?
For instance, softball, what we would be looking at is approximately 5 softball teams to begin with. Each middle school would not have their own because of where we feel numbers would be. So we would try to put our middle schools in feeder programs and have those coaches possibly coaching them. They would practice at the high school sites with our new softball fields at Kickapoo and Glendale. And then we would also have Fast Night, Grant Beach, and then the CBC field there at Hillcrest. So the middle school kids would have to travel to get to those sites. Cross country, I have a concern of kids running within the city at that age at some of our schools. Now with Cherokee and Pleasant View and some where you've got some areas to run, so we would have to look through at that and see if we would have to get those kids or have those kids meet either at Lake Springfield or at Harrison Elementary where there's a cross-country course. So those would be some of our options.
Any other questions from the board?
I don't have any questions, just that these are nothing new. These are what we've tried or talked about, and I'm also glad we're doing things at middle school, and I'll be interested to see how our directors at the middle school, how that evolves, because I just didn't want that to be another person to supervise the students. We can pay somebody a certain amount of money an hour if that's what we need to do. That hopefully that's going to help us at each one of the sites to do these interest level things and develop some clubs and activities at that site that they'll be able to get students involved in based on the interest at that site, and we don't have to replicate that at every middle school. It won't have to be the same. And it's so I'm excited about what we're doing, but the whole facility thing just scares me to death based on where our middle schools are. Even our high schools aren't really where they need to be, but our middle schools are so far behind. I just don't know what we can do to get that solved.
Do you have anything? I do have a comment. I know that this came up during the budgeting process. It has to do with the stipends, and we realized that in that process that those stipends are included in within our collective bargaining agreement. And so I would just like to encourage us, because we're going in the wrong direction on that. I mean, last year we were at 50% complete. It says now 33%.
And I can make a comment to that. You know, when we looked last year, we knew that we had the 3 tiers. And so what we looked at is we gave 25% for the committee meeting and the recommendations going forward. And then we gave 25% for Tier 1. But revisiting that, looking at it, I don't think it really gave a true indication of where we are as a district. So we moved back.
Okay, so those aren't equal compare.
They're not.
That's
Well,
not a comparison.
No.
Comparing apples to apples.
No.
Okay.
So
All right.
we went back and looked at it and said, okay, we're at Tier 1, so we believe that's at 33%.
Nevertheless, I mean, I'm glad to hear that, but we must have that stipend discussion within the collective bargaining discussion, because what happened last year is, you know, I as a board member found out way into the process that wasn't included in that. And I think that we know that the work that those coaches and sponsors and people do to help support children is a real key to those student success. So I just like to reinforce the need to continue to focus on that so we don't get further behind. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Our final report tonight is risk management with Nancy Reagans.
Good evening. For those of you that aren't familiar with risk management in the district, we are a two-person department. So we have a
Small
little
but
bit
mighty, right?
we have a little bit more narrow focus than some. The key strengths that we're looking at here, our main focus always is workers' compensation and the costs related to those injuries. Our key strength is the workers' compensation lost workday incident rates, and those we benchmark our rates against both state and national Department of Labor statistics, and we continue to have excellent rates there. And as an example of how well we're doing with the help of all of the departments out in the district, our General Services Center celebrated over 3.5 years without a lost workday incident.
Wow.
This past year, and they're still going. So that's kind of the type of success that we're seeing with just continued education, continued collaboration with the departments, with all of the procedures that we've put into place. So number 2 kind of just goes along with that. Workers' compensation claim costs, not only the incident rates are down, but that relates to considerable savings. And I feel that we've made great progress, number 3, with the collaboration, as I said, with different departments. Part of the controlling of costs is just making sure that everything starts off on the right foot from the very beginning, and that is just a constant education process, because what we do has to do with situations that don't occur every day. They're kind of out of the ordinary, so we just kind of constantly like to get in front of people and explain this is what we can help you with, and make sure that we're involved in those type of things. The key opportunity for improvement is the establishment of a district safety committee. Currently, we have safety committees at site levels, but we don't have a centralized district committee, and that's one of my goals for the next year.
Any questions?
Are there any questions? Oh, go ahead, Dr. Frederick.
I just am interested in your district safety committee. Who are you looking at as a committee membership for that?
Well, we would have just a wide variety. We would have to keep it fairly small, just so that it's manageable for everybody's time. But we would have education. We would have site administration. We also would have people at the custodial level, nurses. We would like to. We will have representatives from every area.
Any other questions, Mr. Lee?
A couple. Workers' comp claims are really, really good. What of the ones that we do have, what are they typically?
What type of injuries?
What type of injuries are they?
We shoulders, knees, backs, and
For everybody.
strains. Yeah,
Backs. Okay.
across the board, whether it's a teacher or a custodian or a food service worker. Those are the types of injuries that tend to cause us the most problems.
And the number of claims non-workers comp, which is kind of on the edge of being in the red zone.
We are always a little bit high in that area compared to.
I was going to ask you what breaks down that 50 or so. Is it auto, liability, property? Where does that fall? What's the biggest risk? Not risk.
Auto, definitely
it is
auto. Yeah, with
buses or car or the
bus. We have. I have to say we have an excellent
That's what I thought.
accident rate on our buses and our vehicles, but just due to the sheer numbers that we have, that's where we.
I knew we had a great safety record on the
Have
bus
most of our
system. I just
activity.
didn't know
Yeah.
if there was something else was adding to that. That's all I had.
Any other questions? Comments?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So just to briefly look at the new format this year, what's working, what other modifications do you see that we need to adjust or look at? Any comments or questions?
Can you give us some time to digest it?
Absolutely.
Maybe that might be a question that, we could think about throughout the meeting, do a plus delta, or maybe we could give some input next time.
And it is on your summary sheet
Okay.
as well, so good conversation.
I don't know, I
on
mean, if
first.
somebody has comments.
My first comment would be, I would like it, but I
Streamlined.
haven't really, yeah, I like the streamlined process, but again, I haven't thought about it a whole lot other than what I've just seen, but
Absolutely.
Was it working well from your perspective? I guess that would be a question we'd ask too.
Yes.
And from the departments or,
Working well in the cabinet, too.
okay. I mean, that, in some ways, that's just
Cabinet
as
really
important.
does a lot of screening before it gets here, so.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
good
thank
job,
you.
Jill.
We did take action at the September 3rd meeting that involved conflict of interest and disclosure policy. So we'll move on to Section 8, items for separate consideration. Dr. Ritter, request for facilities master plan.
I'd like to make a request of the board at this time that we pull that back. And the main reason for that is developing a long-range facilities plan is an important component of our district's strategic plan. Since timing will be critical to the success of the process, we recommend that we delay this decision due to number of things that need to be looked at as we proceed this year. So I suggest that we kind of step back and look at it at a later date.
So the administration is recommending that we not move forward with
That's
the
correct.
facilities plan right now.
That's right.
And just so the board knows, and Dr. Frederick and I had made contact with each board person or board member. Because of the administration's concern of moving forward, we chose not to have the representative here because we didn't. It was just kind of one of those caught between a rock and a hard place. But I think. So what we would need to do, because it's an outstanding bid, we'd actually have to, and we'll have some discussion here at the board table, because I think there's still some things that need to be said about this issue, but if the board was supportive of that, we'd actually have to have a motion
Right.
to the affirmative, and then the vote would have to be to the negative. So, or we could vote to table it. There'd be two different options. I'll just go ahead and speak first, since Dr. Ritter and I have had some conversations between the last meeting and now, and have heard the administration's concern in moving forward. I think, from my perspective, it became clearer that this was a process that was going to be very hard for the board to be involved in. I think Mr. Hosmer alluded to that last time, at a time that we are going to be very focused on hiring a new superintendent. And that, in my opinion, and we can hear other people's opinions, it became clear to me that to try to balance both of those with those of us on a volunteer board was just going to be time really, really difficult. So my concern in that is that we really need to focus on hiring the superintendent and then letting that new person drive that process. I still think we desperately, we just had discussions about athletic facilities. We talked about our middle school facilities. We know it's a need, but the timing of when we started down this road, when Dr. Ritter announced his retirement, it just was not a really good fit to put this together. So that's my personal perspective. So I would support the administration's recommendation to not move forward. So any other? Yeah, go ahead.
Motion?
No, well, or we can just have a little discussion, then we'll, yeah. Go ahead.
All right, I agree 100% on what you just said. I think one of the things also that in my mind is, while it's incredibly important, the urgency of it, realistically speaking, even if we put a facilities master plan together in 6 months, there's no resources to do anything about it until 2016 anyway, unless there's some operating things that we could do, which I don't know what those are, that it could come out of it. But I think it's critically important, but I think right now we have a higher priority with respect to our activities, and I don't want to get those confused. The last thing I just want to say, and this is more, I just want to make sure that rejecting this has nothing to do with the quality of the contractor or quality of the bids. This has nothing to do with this firm was very good, very sharp. This is a strategic decision, not something based on the work, and I think that's something publicly that needs to be said with respect to them. It has nothing to do with them. I hope they bid again when we do it again down the road. But this is not reflective upon them. That's why it would be rejected. It's based on a prioritization of a board's decision rather than something like that. And I just think I don't want anybody thinking that we didn't like the bid or we didn't like the contract or something like that. Is why we would do that.
Well, there may be, yeah. Go ahead, Mrs. Bush.
Well, there are a couple of things. I don't think there was a realization about how expensive it would be. I think we now have a better idea of the value of that and can put it into the budget if we decide to do that later, and I hope we will. And the other is, I think the new superintendent needs to have ownership in it and be a part of the process because they will inherit it. So I'm much more comfortable stepping back and taking care of it when we can focus on that issue.
Any comments from anybody else? Mr. Renner, you have any?
No, I don't have anything
didn't know
to
if you
add.
were addressing your microphone. Dr. Frederick, did you have something?
I agree with everything that's just been mentioned, and so I would like to, at this time, make a motion that we accept administration's recommendation to delay the facilities master plan.
Okay, I think what we're actually going to have to do, I'm sorry, Dr. Frederick, we're actually going to have a motion that we authorize, because it's an outstanding bid, and we have to take action on the bid. So you'll have to make a motion that the board authorizes the administration to enter into the contract, and then if people want to support the administration's recommendation, we'd have to vote no. So, would you like to do that?
I will make that motion.
Backwards.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Been moved by Dr. Frederick, seconded by Mr. Lee, that the board authorize administration to enter into the contract with MGT of America to prepare a facilities master plan for the amount not to exceed $310,708. Any more discussion before we vote? I guess it's up here. It's not up.
Mine came up.
Oh, I'm at the wrong place. Sorry. I was moving it there.
No, it should show up anyway.
Show up.
Just
No.
okay.
Kathy, can I get a screenshot of all those no votes right next to my name so we can? It's not just me.
I suggest Mr. Hosmer gets some psychiatry.
No, I would just like to, I know that a lot of staff time went into this process, and, I think we've learned, from talking to Dr. Ritter and the recommendation coming forward, I think we've learned a lot. The cost is one thing, the scope is another. The timing is certainly something that we didn't anticipate moving into it. So, again, I've heard from this board, we need a facilities master plan. How we go about that and when we go about that was not the right time. So, all right, with that, we'll move on to 8.02, Professional Development Committee recommendation.
Mrs. Moore? Kathy?
Dr.
So again, as you can see from the action item, we have some pertinent facts that give you the background information. There's no physical implication to what we're asking you to vote on tonight. And the recommendation is that the Board of Education approves the plan that was created by the PL Advisory last spring for the school year and endorse the alignment of the structure of the SPLS site liaisons and district PL Advisory members.
And I haven't looked at this. Is a list of the members of that committee included here?
The authors of the plan
Sorry.
looks like it's not on your copy, and I apologize for that. But it's our district PL advisory is made up of I don't think they were all present the day we made the plan, but we have 16 members, and we have one administrative rep, a rep from both teacher organizations that are appointed, and then with the new structure that is explained in this action item, we'll have an early childhood rep, teacher reps, and then still our teacher organization reps, and 2 administrative reps, 1 elementary and 1 secondary.
Thank you.
So they will be the people giving input on the actions for following the plan that was created last year, and then giving input for plans for next year.
Is there a motion to approve the recommendation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved by Mrs. Bush, seconded by Mr. Renner, that the board approves the 2013-14 professional learning plan created by the Professional Learning Advisory and endorse the alignment of the structure of the SPLS site liaisons and district professional learning advisory members. And I'd like to thank all of those people for their work to get us to this point as well.
They're a great group of people. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to 8.03.
Mr. McKenna, please. Medical stop loss.
Good evening. At this time each year, I come to you with a recommendation to renew our medical stop loss coverage. As a reminder, medical stop loss coverage reinsures the district's health plan in the event of a large or catastrophic claim for an individual, or in a large or catastrophic year for the plan as a whole. Our benefits consultant, Gallagher Benefit Services, is responsible for brokering that coverage and marketing our intent to renew that coverage. This year, we received only one company interested in rebidding that coverage, which was our existing carrier, the one that we have currently and that we propose to renew with, which is HM Insurers. HM provided us a variety of options for renewal, and administration's recommendation is listed in the action item tonight to renew coverage effective October 1st. The premium amount is also listed there this year, which is $744,896. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Go ahead, Mrs. Bush.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
And it said will include the 275,000. So that really means that the 744,000 is what you're saying includes the 275,000.
So the policy that we purchased for that premium amount of $744,000 includes a deductible of $275,000. So for a specific individual, if they have a health plan claim that exceeds that 275, that's at that point
This kicks in.
It does. We also have what we call an aggregating specific, which is listed on the next line there, which is $225,000, and that means that once the individual level is reached, then we have another pool of $225,000 we have to satisfy. Then at that point, the reinsurance kicks in.
How often have you exceeded those, just in terms of number of claims?
Yeah, it just kind of depends. We've had years where we've been lucky enough not to have any reimbursement, but I would say on average probably twice a year, 2 or 3 times.
Mr. Lee?
Can you talk a little bit about 9 companies chose not to submit, citing uncompetitive pricing? What does that mean?
Well, this particular industry with this particular type of coverage, carriers want to be familiar with the business that they're bidding. And in addition, we do have, because of our size and our population, we do have not a terrifically desirable population to insure relative to that history. We do have a couple of claims every year, and insurance companies are often not in the business of paying claims. They would prefer not to have to do that. So when you see that experience and when you take a look at the population, our current carrier is comfortable with us and comfortable with our practices, provided a competitive quote, and once they knew that and once they're aware of that, they tell you we can't compete with that, and so they just choose not to bid.
Population, you mean highly female population?
No, not necessarily. Just given the claims experience of our population, the number of claims we have, the type of claims that we have. I mean, they look at your experience in a variety of facets: age of your population, demographics, the types of claims, the number of reimbursements we get each year, those kinds of things.
Okay, is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Mr. Lee, seconded by Dr. Frederick, that the board adopt the recommendation of administration and approve the superintendent or designee to sign a contract authorizing HM Insurers Incorporated to act as the district's carrier for medical stop-loss coverage effective October 1st, 2013 through September 30th, 2014.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
We need to get you a new computer. Okay, Mr. Chodes.
Thank you. One of the recommendations that that came out in the state audit report was that when the dust settled on the prior year's financial statements, that we present again the revised financial statements. So if you'll turn to page 2 of the action item, you'll see the June 30, 2013 financial report. Back in June, a projection was presented to the board, and after about $2.2 million in year-end accruals and other year-end entries, I'm pleased to say that we came within $54,000 of that projection. Our ending fund balance is $39,426,883. Any
What
questions on the
percentage does that
June?
represent?
Pardon?
What percentage does that represent? I'm sorry.
The 54, the 39.
39.
You know, I did not.
Sorry, I caught you off guard.
Yeah, it'd probably be about 18 or 19%.
Okay. All right, Mrs. Bush, and then we'll go
Is
down.
there a board policy on how large the reserve should be?
Not how large, but that
Percent.
there should be, that it should be greater than 10%.
And that's the only thing so far is, okay.
Right. And you know, we're going to revisit that at some point when we're looking at all the board policies.
I'm curious at knowing too what the tax anticipation notes costs are to get you from July through November and December. And you don't have to tell me now.
Okay.
I'd just like to know as we move forward.
We'll do that.
Any questions down at this end? We're kind of weighted this way, so I'm trying not to ignore you guys down there.
And then if you'll look at page 5, you'll see the July revised. And actually, the only thing that changed on the July is just the beginning and ending fund balances. We now have an accurate June 30 fund balance. And then finally, if you will turn to page 8, you'll see our usual financial statement now for the month of August. The revenue so far year to date is at 7%. That is down from last year's 9.55%. The culprit is the federal revenue, and that is essentially a timing difference. We received federal funding earlier in the year last year. We still anticipate receiving that funding. And the expenditures are tracking right in line with last year. We're at 5%, and last year at this time we were also at 5%. Any questions?
Questions? And then that next page is the variances that.
Right. And in looking at the larger variances for the month, I'm not sure variance is it's a difference is what it is. The larger ones were grants. One was actually a grant addition, a new grant, and the other was a grant that carried over from last year. We determined that we were not going to receive that grant this year, so we reduced it.
Explain the variance to me. When you say, okay, revenues you expect, did you take your total budget for the year, divide it by 12, and assume that this is how much you'll get each month? How do you come up with the July budget, the August budget? And I understand the variance, but how do you establish those monthly budgets?
We don't do monthly budgets. This is the actual total budget. So at the end of July, We had a revenue budget of $224,418,000. Now at the end of August, we have a total revenue budget of $224,435,434. The $17,434 difference being the two grants that I referred to, one being an addition, one being a reduction.
Oh, Mr. Lee?
And just a quick question. Has the governor released the money? I know he said he was going to, but has he officially released the money yet from the budget department?
Not yet. We have not received the funding for this month yet.
I know he's going to. I just didn't know if it had been done yet.
They, if they, what we determined is they withheld a very small amount, so it's not like we'll receive a flood of money.
Out of windfall?
Well, other districts had a bigger hit.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mrs. Bush.
Okay, I'm at the next page with the, let me see what it says. I like the page number. August 13 variances, again, under expenses. Why are we getting variances right now for expenditures when we've just started spending the money in the budget?
Well, there are a lot of reasons. The two larger amounts, the negative $168,000 and the positive $146,000, are mainly reflecting the two grants. In addition, sites have the ability to move money from supplies to equipment and vice versa. That's a number of those differences. I mean, if you have specific questions on these, I can provide.
I'll come to you directly.
Any other questions? Is there a motion to approve the treasurer's report?
Move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved by Mr. Renner, seconded by Mr. Lee. The board approves the treasurer's report as presented.
Thank you.
Okay, section 9 are the routine action items. I'll entertain a motion to accept those.
So move.
Is there a second? Been moved by Mr. Lee, seconded by Mr. Renner, that the board approves each of the routine action items as submitted. Are we moving too fast for you, Ms.? Did it come up that time?
No.
Oh.
I'm having to get a fiscal high science.
Okay.
Low tech.
Yeah. And then under the general consent items, these are items that we discussed at the study session on the 3rd of September. Is there a recommendation to approve these?
So move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
He fell asleep.
Moved by Mr. Lee, seconded by Dr. Frederick, that the board approves each of the routine action items approves each recommendation submitted by the administration and the general consent items. Okay. Moving on to the information items, those are outlined of what was discussed at the meeting on September 3rd. Mrs. Linton, are there any public speakers for non-agenda items? Okay, moving on. I'm guessing our legislative report will be maybe non-existent.
That's it. Yeah.
Again, just thank you to everyone for your efforts to defeat House Bill 253. It was really, to me, very satisfying to see the community, a lot of different facets of the community that sometimes don't always work well together on political issues come forward. I know the city council passed a resolution or some sort of support, so, and the chamber, of course, was there too. So
Chamber was big.
It will be back.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Andy.
A couple of things, and one, I think, as a board, we need to thank as you said, we didn't have a lot of impact in changing the minds of our local legislators, but Charlie Norris stood with us on the first vote,
and he stood with us on the second vote. We need to applaud him for that. We also need to applaud Jeff Messenger and Lynn Morris and Lyndall Fraker. Got to mention the Marshfield boys, since I'm from Marshfield. For Republicans taking quite a risk in, you hate to say this, but doing the right thing. They did the right thing. They stood up for 25,000 students and against one St. Louis billionaire. And that St. Louis billionaire pumped millions of dollars into this campaign. And you see the threats, you see the things that are coming out of the leadership up there talking about doing, retaliating against these people that basically all they did was voted for 25,000 kids in Springfield. And I'm glad we got the veto sustained, but boy, we shouldn't have had to work that hard for a ridiculously bad bill for education. And that's what's a little bit frustrating, is that no way, shape, or form was that good for public education in the state of Missouri, and we had to work like cats and dogs to get that thing sustained.
I think the representative from Bolivar also voted with the governor. So
It's kind of along the same line. And I think there's always some silver lining in a black cloud. But I think the whole impact of 253 has brought organizations, groups together for the first time in a long time that got on the same page. And I'm talking about strange bedfellows, not just the ones that you would think would typically be there. And I guess my thought is that may bode well for us down the road in whether it's 253 or it's other issues that deal with education, that the coalition and collaboration that happened between some 40 or 50 organizations to help fight this billionaire in St. Louis may provide benefit, Rex, may help provide opportunity down the road on stuff that's not even a tax-related issue like this. I haven't seen an issue like this generate people to get together for something so bad, so horrible before, particularly dealing with education. But it wasn't just education that was going to be impacted by this. It's going to come back, but I just hope that this group and these people that have got together will continue to stay that collaborative, and everybody just doesn't scatter now to do. I don't think that's going to happen. I truly believe that this group will be a cohesive group, but I think there is some benefit to having a common enemy to do that, and maybe Rex gets one vote. That's all he gets. I don't care how many millions of dollars he puts in there. We get 5,000 votes for each one, or however they get in their district, and I think that needs to be loud and clear that Rex isn't going to get him elected. I'm going to get him elected when I go to the ballot.
Yeah, I do know that there was discussion and I think we just need to affirm our desire to do this, but to send a public thank you to those representatives, and then probably an op-ed piece to the paper that I would like all of our names to be on if people are agreeable to that. I think that speaks.
It's already out there.
And something else I would recommend, along with that, I really think that a same type thing to Governor Nixon, because he hung in there and he took some shots. He took arrows every day he was out there.
That's a good point.
And he hung in there for us, and it was the right thing to do, and he did. And he didn't make any friends with a lot of people, which that's fine. That's what he gets big bucks for. But he never wavered, and I just appreciate Governor Nixon hanging in there, and I would hope that we as a board would also, however you want to do it.
Could some letters be drafted? Yeah,
could
some letters be drafted? Okay, great.
I'll take
Thank
care
you.
of that.
Yeah, go ahead, Ms.
I was impressed when he came to meet here at Kraft, and at the very end of his speech, clearly the passion that was there. This wasn't just a rational decision or political decision. There's a passion. He has education in his background. And I just wish we could create that passion for education among the rest of our elected officials. And I don't know how to do that, but we need to figure it out.
Okay, anything under future issues?
Along that same line, I'd like to have maybe a couple members of the board work with me on legislative priorities to kind of put some kind of language together. Any?
Volunteer, anybody else be interested? No.
Mr. Hosmer?
That's a powerful group, great.
Good. Do no harm, just do no harm.
I like it.
Don't worry about doing good, just
Yeah, just-
Meet every other year.
don't harm.
Great, thank you.
That'll be easy. All right, that's all I need.
Okay, great. Anything else under other? Did receive the financial and operations report, which is really quite extensive and definitely worth reviewing. I'd encourage everybody to do their plus deltas, and we do need to go into executive session